Chair Ryan. Thank you, Chair Ryan. Hold, please. Present.
Here. Here.
Welcome to Web. Enter your access. Meeting number. Hello.
I believe that was Regent Stewart calling in. Regent James.
I can't hear you. It's one. Regent James is here.
Regent Jappanen.
Here as well.
Regent McCarthy. Absence is noted. Regent Forth. Student Regent Sanchez. Regent Santiago. Absence is noted. Regent Stewart is here. Regent Wright.
I'm here.
Yang. Ex officio Professor Blitz. Ex officio Professor Sasanker. Commissioner Bartolomeo. Absence is noted. Commissioner Giuttani. Absence is noted. Commissioner Dock. Absence is noted. Commissioner Russell Tucker. Absence is noted. Officer Vastries. Absence is noted. And welcome to all 6 presidents. President Maduco, President Nunez, President Bertolino, excuse me, interim President Smith, President Toro, interim President Singh, and President Clancy. And welcome to Ari Santiago, Regent Santiago.
Thank you, Pam.
Good morning again.
Thank you, Pam.
Good morning again. As you know, given the level of state funding provided in the biennium budget, board charged TSA Chang with developing a process to mitigate projected deficits in both FY24 and FY20. We understand this is not an easy task. We would prefer not to have to navigate these challenges. We are grateful for the hard work of the system office and the institutional presidents. Crafting the mitigation plan. Please note, there's a lot of information to be presented to the regions today, but no decisions will be made. Chancellor Chen will start with very brief remarks before turning the meeting over to CFO Lloyd Richard for a presentation, discussion of system financial information and our deficit mitigation plan. That each of the institution presidents, supported by the CFO and provost, will report on their institution's specific mitigation efforts. They will be provided with a maximum of 15 minutes for both their presentation and time for question and answers, except for CT State, who will have 25 minutes to present. Our board secretary will assist with keeping our time on track, as well as helping to recognize regions with questions. With that, I turn the floor over to Chancellor Chang.
Thank you, Chair. So I want to thank the board for being here today and for your constant support. I want to thank our presidents and all of their leadership teams, all of the executives that lead our campuses. And I want to thank the faculty and the staff who have been part of the process to this point. It has been incredibly hard. It's been incredibly hard on all of us as administrators, as faculty, as staff, and it's been hard for students. Today's presentation and conversations are going to demonstrate that all of our institutions and system offices have done almost everything we can to work within the state budget allocation that was passed back in June. We've made significant progress in trying to close the projected budget deficits for this current fiscal year and for fiscal year 2025. We're not quite there yet, and there may be more that we need to do. We're going to continue to work diligently and responsibly to serve our students while being prudent and mindful of budgetary challenges we find ourselves in. We will continue our efforts because we've been charged to do so. But this may be as far as we can go before taking more drastic, more painful, and more harmful steps to our system. To be clear, these mitigation efforts are already having a negative impact. That said, these steps may be planned closures or an overdependence on reserves. And that is a testament to the hard work, the thoughtful planning, and the really scrupulous activities that have taken place so far amongst our administrators, our faculty, and our staff who have been working so hard. Of course, our preference would be full funding for our system and funding beyond the remaining shortfall would allow us to not only decrease the impact that these very real actions are having, they would allow us to continue to have more of a positive impact and begin to build off of a base to enhance and improve our student learning, faculty, and staff working experience. We will continue the intensive conversations we've been having with our state leaders in an effort to achieve these goals. So with that, I'll hand over the presentation to our CFO and Vice President of Administration, Dr. Lloyd Blanchard.
Thank you, Chancellor Strang. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. We are going to walk through this deficit mitigation plan. I will provide the overview of this plan and the associated numbers, and I will also address the mitigation that we will implement at the system office. After that, I will pass it to the respective presidents, and they will follow each other in presenting their mitigation plan and answering these questions after I'm done. So next slide, please. So what you see now is kind of a starting point. Back in June, the June board meeting presented these numbers that show an overall deficit in FY24 of $13.7 million and in FY25 of $140.2 million. Now, these totals are aggregate totals across the whole system. So to look at FY24, the main focus should be on those institutions with deficits. That includes Western Connecticut State University and CT State Community College. So in FY25, you will see all institutions have deficits that add up to $140 million. This $140 million deficit is as large as one can imagine. It represents 10%, one every $10 spent by this system. Represents 10% of our budget. So that really is a significant amount, and we'll walk through how we plan to address it. Slide, please. So how did we get here with regard to FY25? First of all, this plan will balance the budget for the current fiscal year, FY24. However, FY25, as I said before, is very large. How did we get here? First, through enrollment declines. We've faced here in Connecticut and throughout the New England states steady enrollment decline because of the demographic changes. The pandemic only exacerbated that decline. Second, the tuition and fees have declined because the enrollment has declined. Third, the pandemic really changed a lot of our world, personally and professionally. But professionally, it exacerbated enrollment decline, as well as put us in a situation where the state was using one-time funds that it was receiving from the federal government to help fund not only emergency costs and emphasis, but also permanent costs and permanent cost increases. That proved to be a challenge. Number four, state appropriations revenue. We are grateful to the state for providing the support they do provide, but the one-time funds went away before we were ready for it to go away. And finally, fringe costs. Fringe costs are a driver of a lot of costs here in the state of Connecticut. They certainly impact us here in higher education. We cover fringe costs in ways that other state agencies do not. Next slide, please. So how will we address such a large deficit? There are a number of different mitigation options, and I'd like to think of them as levers. When you have a small deficit, you can use one or two different levers or options to address that kind of a deficit. When you have a deficit that approaches 10% of your total budget, you really need to use many levers to address that, so that you don't rely on one particular option. So those options fall within the revenue side of the ledger. They fall within the expenditure side of the ledger. I won't read those for you, but you can see what they are. And finally, and only finally, use cash reserves. Cash reserves are a one-time solution. Once used, they're gone. And so it is appropriate to use cash reserves only as a supplement to more permanent changes, either on the revenue side or on the expenditure side. And that's the general approach that we took with this mitigation plan. Next slide, please. So this slide shows you that we took the balanced approach for public higher education here in the state, using revenue increases, using expenditure reductions, and then again, using cash reserves. You can see that in FY24, we are planning to mitigate $63 million of deficit. Well, the deficit is only 26.7, but we have mitigation that adds up to $63 million. We want to do this because we need help for the FY25 deficit, which you can see starts at $140 million, of which we can mitigate $106 million of that. That represents about 76% of the deficit we project in FY25. The balanced approach shows that we use revenue enhancements, expenditure reductions, and cash. And what we can't accomplish in mitigation through those options, we will seek additional support starting with the state. So you can see that we have technical adjustments. Number one, line. Those technical adjustments adjust the deficit that really was reported back in June of the current year. So those are kind of numbers. That first line updates the surplus and deficit numbers. The second line, new revenue initiatives, will amount to $16.7 million in FY24 and $29.8 million in FY25. The FY25 number of $29 million does include an assumption of a tuition increase. About $14 million is represented in that number. Line 3 is expenditure reduction. $36.8 million for FY24 and $48.6 million in FY25. In FY25, this expenditure reduction represents almost half of our mitigation effort, which is an aggressive approach, but not nearly enough to accomplish such a large, to mitigate such a large deficit. And finally, you'll see institutional cash support, which is just cash reserves. We will use dollars in FY24 that will help us mitigate the entire deficit in FY24. And then in FY25, we plan to use $1.4 million in cash to get us to a $106 million mitigation. Now, in FY25, that's not enough. That's how large the deficit is. So we will be seeking additional support from the state of $47.6 million. Next slide, please. This is a summary of our of this mitigation plans and how they impact each of our four-year universities. I will summarize this, but defer to the president to speak in more detail about how these numbers were produced. But you can see the various options that I mentioned in summary in the previous slide. You will see how they apply to each of the four universities. I'll call your attention to the expenditure line, number 3. If you just look across that line, that will show you that Central is reducing their expenditures by 1.7 million, Eastern by 5.6 million, Southern by 1.8 million, and Western by 8.7 million. You see the new revenue initiatives associated with that. And let me explain on the revenue side. It will be tough to generate more revenues in the current fiscal year because spring semester is already upon us, and we collect revenues mainly in the fall and in the spring. So most of the new revenues will come in FY25. And then, of course, we can see the cash usage. Most of our institutions don't need to use, so our universities don't need to use much cash. Southern is using a small amount to close their deficit in FY25. Next slide, please. This shows how mitigation plan works for CC State, for Charter Oak, and eventually the system office. You will hear presidents of CC State, Charter Oak explain in detail how they accomplish these numbers. In particular, CC State has the biggest challenge throughout the system. So we will ask President Duco to spend extra time explaining the work that he has done to accomplish this particular develop this plan. Charter Oak is small relative to the other institutions. You can see the numbers yourself. They will balance their budget on the back of additional revenues in FY25. And here at the system office, we can, in good conscience, engage in deficit mitigation. We don't make cuts ourselves. They're system office. So you'll see in FY24, we're planning $3 million in mitigation and $3.9 million in expenditure reductions for FY25. In addition to new revenues that we plan to generate through grants. We're setting up the grant office this year, not a grant office, but a couple of people in academic affairs to generate more grants for both research purposes and for capacity building purposes. Next slide. And this really provides detail on what we plan to do at the system office. The system office really, our strategy is to streamline our activities here and our personnel here at the system office and support outside operations throughout our system. We will do that through moving employees as necessary from the system office to CC State when time is right. We want to help CC State build the capacity so that it can do the work, the important work that it does. The numbers restate what I've already shared with you. So with that, I will stop. Regents, be happy to take any questions. And then after that, we will ask the president to make their presentations. Any questions? Yes.
Does the interest rate environment in the public debt markets have any impact on our planning with the rise in financing?
Not as much as you might think. That will affect our borrowing to the extent that we borrow. But we're not in a position right now to think about borrowing for investment purposes. It will affect the state, however, and its cash management, and that will affect us indirectly.
Okay, thank you. Is that also on the other side of that? Does it impact our cash reserves in a positive way?
The interest rate environment will impact our cash reserves in a positive way.
Thank you.
Thank you. First question is, will a copy of this slideshow be made available to us? It would have been helpful to have in advance, but I do appreciate the time that you've taken. And in particular, the various items that you mentioned as causes of the deficit. And I'm just, I'll formulate it as a question. It's a question period. Would you be willing to add as well that the consolidation of the community college, which was supposed to save money and provide proof for this to students, has in fact cost students money, contributed to a massive debt, and not, at least up to now, made that significant improvement to student services? And secondly, would you be willing to add that the CSU 2030 plan, which was an overreach, unrealistic, and to some extent unreasonable, has resulted in significant underfunding from the PMO, the OPM, and in the governor's budget? Would you be willing to add those two items?
They didn't sound like questions to me. I can't add those two items to mitigation going forward, but I will accept them as comments about what has already taken place. Thank you, Professor. Yes.
I just want to make one further statement in the comments here, which I believe may have been, yes, the introductory comments. Suggests that we are demonstrating, sorry, says this demonstrates that we are taking necessary steps and moving in the right direction. And I just want to make sure that as we talk about these mitigation plans today, and take into context what we're talking about, we are moving in the direction that the state budget has forced us and has pushed us and has made necessary. I think right is the wrong word to use given the needs of the state, and I hope we can talk more about that later on as to how much these mitigation plans are responsive to the needs of the people who live in the state of Connecticut. So just want to put that on a
statement, Professor. Thank you. Madam Chair, with that, the next slide, we'll start with President Klonowski with Charter Oak.
President Nov, sorry to interrupt. So having really bad audio problems online.
I can be louder.
Unfortunately, it's not a projector. So I think we need to pause the meeting. Is that correct? And let us deal with our technological issues for a moment. We're going to let you stuff and then. I appreciate it.
How they're wait. Good morning again. This is Ed Klonowski. I'm the president of Charter Oak. I'm going to start this presentation over for those of you who are looking at this not in the room. My apologies to those of you in the room. I'll try to be concise. I'm going to do three things with this presentation: introduce Charter Oak, give you our mitigation plan, and talk about our sustainable business model. So what are we? We are very much a niche institution. We do not do all things to all people. Here's what we do. We're fully and only online. We're adult serving. We serve students with credits and no credential. And all of our students are employed. So that's the who we serve. And how do we operate? We have 8-week terms. We have 6 of them. They run with between them year round. We are an instruction machine. I hear the feedback going. So what aren't we? Not a full service campus. We don't have dorms, residence faculty, sports, dining halls, etc. We do not offer a coming of age experience. But our students aren't asking for that. The average age of our graduates is 37. As I said, there were 77 full-time, 12% part-time. So the audience that we serve is looking for what we're offering. And I didn't invent this model. They told us what the model is. We offered 15 courses and 8-week courses. They only signed up for the 8-week courses. We offered other ways to get credit. They wanted to go online. So we've very much been driven by the marketplace from our inception 50 years ago. Well, the last thing I'm going to tell you about us, maybe the most significant. We charge $329 a credit. That means we have the lowest cost degree in the state. Now that means two things. It means we are a great bargain for working adults. Number two, it means we do not have surplus revenues to offer full service experience. We are set up and funded only do what we do. So two more things. One more thing. We do not tuition increase next year. Where's my applause? All right. So what did we decide to do about mitigation? We decided most of our revenue back. And we decided to grow 9% a year for the next 3 years. That's a pretty big goal. What made us think we could do that? Three things. First, back in 2018, we faced our own fiscal crisis. We had the right college. We closed on a program called CTO. We shed the employees associated with it. Shrank our footprint. Began to work our way back to fiscal health. One piece of evidence of that fiscal health is we have 100 days of cash in reserve. I think the industry standard nationally is 90. So we made ourselves fiscally healthy again. So we went into this crisis strong. Second. Well, higher education over the last 10 years is shrinking from 20 million to less than 18 million participants in the system nationally. Distance learning has grown in every one of those years. Yes, the pandemic years were nuts and crazy. But we grew again this year without the pandemic. So distance learning has been positive for a decade, while the rest of higher ed has not been enrollment. Finally, we didn't shrink during the pandemic. Our enrollment was stable or slight during those 2 years, and stable before that. So we're the only member of the system that really wasn't affected by the pandemic in an enrollment way. So that's how we got to the 9% goal. We had a whole semester to see how we did. Here's the results. We picked 9% as our goal. We heads by 10.2%. We grew credits by 15.8%. So we overachieved. We think we can keep this going. It's easy. And don't give me any credit for it. This is a team effort down to the trenches at Charter Oak. None of these things happen. President says they should happen. They only happen. The team works very hard to make them happen. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our sustainable model. First, let me talk about how we got 10% growth in kids. Our enrollment success can be attributed to our marketing efforts. We've been expanding at the top of the funnel, marketing talk, through improved lead generation. How do we get people to know we're out? We do not have a brand. Unlike Southern New Hampshire, that everybody knows, Western governors, or UConn, we don't have a brand. So what we do is we advertise through paid Google campaigns, and they bring students to the digital source step. When they get there, we want one of three things. Fill out a request for information form, so we know who they are, or RSVP to a virtual house, more about that in a moment, or chat with a live human being. So what we're trying to do is make our landing pages intensely interactive, so when students arrive there, curious about us, we can satisfy that curiosity. So virtual local house, something new started in the pandemic, because we were in actual houses, 10, 15, 20 people would attend. The virtual house, we did 18 of them last year, attracted 2,177 attendees. It's just an amazing ballooning of interest. Of those 2,127 people, 47% were new leads, not prospects. For those in the marketing business, you know what that means. This was the first contact with the college. They looked at our website, they followed the link to a virtual open house, so they learned one of us. And 40% of those registered this applied to the college. So the success rate on these virtual open houses, we can see it's coming. Results are actually 13%. They give you a couple of data points. Our conversion rate on applicants is 32%. Our conversion rate applications to deposits is 60%. And once they deposited, 85% roll. So if we can get them in the door, we have a great track record of getting them enrolled in college. Now, how is our retention generally? It's 77%, semester 69% year over year. Those are not numbers as good as UConn or Central, for example, but our population is very different. All of our learners drop out. All of them are second chance learners. So technically, these are students that didn't succeed. They come back in our door, and our job is to help them finish. Those are pretty good numbers, and we try to make them a little bit better. So what are our challenges? Three things, and they're simple to explain. First, we must continue to streamline our enrollment process. We compete with your bank, we compete with your favorite retailers, but our adults come to our website, they expect it to be as efficient as their bank is. Now, we hit that standard. That's what we've got to get to, because they do not walk in our front door. They do not talk to them. They come into our website, into these links, they hit the site, and that site will tell them everything they need to know, and tell them in a couple of minutes. When they deal with us financially, we have to accept that money the way everybody else does. It's not easy. Second challenge. The university is marketing high schools. So for Western and Area High School is a big depository of potential students. We don't have high schools to market. That's not our audience. Our audience is working out. We need to market in businesses. So we're launching a new campaign we call Career Test. The idea here is we're saying to employers, if you pay us $5,150, which just happens to be the IRS tax rate training people, if you pay us that for one person, you'll let that one person take as much learning HR business stuff done in a year. We're negotiating with large company right now. This is NDA, so I can't tell you more than that. This is our high school model. We can pull this off. Then we're going to have businesses sending their employees. They like finances of it. It means that the workers want to shell out the money in advance of the course of the reimbursement back end. Again, people whose cash flow is low, that's a lot to ask. Remember, working adults, your job comes first, family comes second, their own education comes third, financially speaking in our house. And our last challenge, I'm going to repeat this later, is funding. Plus about $250,000 charter roll on the program. All of our costs are up front. And we can afford about one a year. We should do it. We look at it only by the fact that we don't have the resources to grow faster. Okay, next. Let's talk about the sustainable business model. I'm going to wrap it up. Three things to it. First, we pay our instructors first and taught, $230 a head. So our instructor costs map directly to instructional need. That's why we're not paying our faculty. That's not how we operate. Second, course development. We build our courses to teams, instructional design, subject matter expert, assessment person. We use a college template. So once course is designed to be usable, so our courses are scalable. And finally, I'll talk a little bit about the tuition match program that we began in 2018. We let every community college graduate in Connecticut. They come to Charter Oak, they hear graduating. They can finish their bachelor's degree with us at the same price they pay at their local community college. So we flattened the costs for those students, so much so that if they're fully eligible, their bachelor's degree is free. We're pretty proud of that. All right, I'm going to stop at this point to allow you guys to ask questions. There's a few more things I said, time to share. So I'm here to need to ask you something.
Regents, any questions for President Klonowski?
Yes, sir.
You get free additional student now you cover your costs.
I think we make $12,000 a student in their lifetime in Charter Oak. Mike, I got that right? So our margin is modest, but it's a margin.
Thank you.
So I think it's impressive to have these results and have the amount of data that you have. How can we take these learnings and apply them to other institutions here?
Well, what I was talking about, if I had more time, I think there's partnership opportunities with the other institutions with us. For example, we're working very hard to be CT State's transfer solution. We're not getting around about this. We want to be the place that our CT colleges to go. We're not messing around. I mean, 24% of my student body are those community college graduates. So we're already all in on that. Now, on the other front, we've got a partnership we're working on Western and another one with Southern. Southern is a master's degree in social work. The front end cost of that, I think they have to hire 6 faculty to get that program sub-accredited. Wayne, correct me if I'm wrong. We have to hire 2 people to do our bachelor's in social work. I can't afford to do a master's in social work. But I'm going to have hundreds of students a year who need one. I want it to be Southern. But I'm asking Southern 2 things. First, you have to do your online program asynchronously. We don't have a choice. That's exactly what they need. Second, you've got to give my students understanding.
Explain that, because I'm not sure everyone understands.
Is the standing?
No, it's asynchronous.
What asynchronous means in our classes, the work for each week is assigned at the beginning of the week and it's due at some point during the week. There's almost no synchronous meeting face-to-face time. There's no scheduling difficulties for these working adults. You can do some things. You can talk to an individual student or 2. You have a work group. But the course proceeds 8 weeks at a time. That allows working adults to fit the course to their schedule, not our schedule. It's critical. All of the online monsters in America are all asynchronous. There are no big synchronous online programs. They don't scale. And scale's the magic button to the question you asked about margin. If you can scale and you can make money, we're not profitable, we're trying to get rich, but you can make enough money to continue to grow. If you don't scale, you don't grow. Remember, there's 2 problems on the growth front. We all know about the demographic problem. The bigger problem is the demand curve. High school students want to go to college. Almost 60% of our students are female. Where do boys go? Now, we can solve that problem, but we have to own up to it. It's real. Part of it is our fault. Anyway, that was the answer to that question. Anything else? I like doing this. Say what you want.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's go ahead to State University. President Nelson Nunez.
Before you go on to the next presentation, we're very different from Charter Oak. So that was a good introduction and a great presentation. Eastern Connecticut State University is of course Connecticut's only public liberal arts college. We're completely residential. Students live on campus. They love the atmosphere. They love being with each other. They're mostly all 18 to 22-year-old. They have a lot of support services at Eastern, clubs and organizations. We have over 125 clubs and organizations. They're engaged in the life of the university. And more importantly, they believe in 2 things. Number 1, issues of social justice. And they believe that the issues of sustainability have to be attended to by their generation. They're very motivated on these 2 fronts, and they work very hard with faculty all the time to create an atmosphere in Eastern that's not always just academic, but connects the classroom and the out of classroom experience. You know, because I've said it so many times in my presidency, U.S. News and World Report ranks Eastern number 1 in New England and the North, which goes all the way from Maryland to Canada and across Pennsylvania. They rank us number 16, which is no small feat for a small state university in Connecticut. We're very proud of all of these. And so the mantra for Eastern has been quality. The faculty is a quality faculty. They work their students on one-to-one. We get many students in medical school, all kinds of graduate schools, and also they have a really strong sense of undergraduate research because the faculty is so dedicated to working with their students day in and day out. So the story that I'm going to tell about Eastern briefly this morning did start with the problems that that system office identified with the system. We've been frugal and very, very conservative financially for a long time. And credit for all of that goes to the finance team at Eastern, the faculty and the staff, and all of the people who work together to make sure that Eastern has always managed financially sound. The first slide that's over, that's presented to you has been, can I have the next slide? Thank you. Is about what we've done in the academic area. All of you have heard about the initiative from the system office, from the provost office, Provost Turi, on APP, which stands for Academic Program Planning. Well, our faculty has been doing academic program planning way before the system office asked us to do so. Our faculty has been seriously engaged in strengthening your majors and looking at their curriculum. I'm very proud to say this morning that 9 academic majors have been revised by the faculty, reducing the number of credits that will take to graduation. That's money in the bank for us. And so 9 out of the majors that we are working with is a lot, because this is a short period of time. We've been only working on this since 2018. But then we also looked at, in the United States, you have a major, a minor, and a concentration strategy, usually at most universities. Many universities have dropped the concentration strategy because it's a costly one to keep. We took time to look at our concentration strategy at Eastern and found that we were offering courses in the concentration that were not necessary for graduation. They were good courses and students liked them, but they were costing us money. And so when we started to eliminate the courses that were under-enrolled in concentrations, now I'm saying not every course and every concentration was eliminated, but we looked at the under-enrolled courses, we were able to capture savings. The next slide. So the cost savings for us by eliminating those courses that were under-enrolled was almost $2 million in a very short period of time. That mitigation strategy was very important for us to show the faculty and to work with the faculty on whether or not there would be other ways to look at the academic area to streamline the majors and the minors that exist. I had a very wonderful experience, President, early this semester when a faculty member came into my office, unannounced, I must say, but came in to say to me, Elsa, we just looked at our music major. And we are doing all the things that the students want in a music major, and we're talking to parents in open house about what they're looking at in the music major. And so we're now looking at streamlining the music major, which is a very expensive major at Eastern. So all of this mitigation around in the academic area has been supported by the faculty, and we're very proud of the engagement of the faculty because they really do want to be institutions that draw students because of the strength of the academic program. We consider our brand an excellent brand in the marketplace. We are seen as a very rigorous undergraduate institution. Our greatest competitor is UConn. Next slide, please. But we didn't just look at academic affairs. We also looked at non-academic areas. And this slide shows you that in the last few years, we had 403 staff positions, and we reduced them over time to 381. That's a reduction of 20 full-time staff members, and that's with attrition. Nobody was laid off or fired. But we use attrition as a strategy to make sure that we don't fill every position that is just automatically vacated. We say at Eastern, the department doesn't own the positions, and the position should be reallocated and redeployed in any way that the administration, in consultation with staff, feels is appropriate. Management's confidential. We felt that it was very important for us to signal to the community that it wasn't just the academic area, it wasn't just non-academic positions that were being targeted, but we looked at management confidential. I'm proud to tell you this morning that we had at one time 31 management confidential positions. Today we have 23. Among those is my executive assistant. I work without executive assistant. All my work is distributed among 3 people who are fantastic. It is a problem at times, but it is a signal to everybody. If you're going to make a sacrifice, the president's going to make a sacrifice as well. So that reduction in management confidential positions has been a mitigation strategy at Eastern. We then said we have to look at new revenue sources. Not an easy thing to do when you're a residential liberal arts college, primarily undergraduate. So we looked at that online master's program. And I must say it was embarrassing to see what little offering we had in master's programs. We have excellent faculty, doing the work, but we just were not maximizing the opportunities that we had for online. So we have partnered with this, and this has provided a platform for us, marketing, and also the training for the faculty. We believe that in 25, we will have $5 million revenue source from this. And in 26, we'll have $7 million. These numbers have been confirmed by other institutions that have had partnerships with this. We can talk about Charter Oak offline if you like, and why the provost is so interested in working on two fronts with our faculty at Eastern and the other state universities, and that is number one, the collective bargaining agreement, and number two, a cultural shift at the system level. The second program I want to talk about is the nursing program. No cost to Eastern. I always refused to have a nursing program, too expensive, I said. And guess what? The state came up with money with a nursing program that we desperately needed, that fund physicians. The hospital came out with space. They renovated the space for the simulation labs. I didn't have to pay for that. And a donor came up with scholarship money for all the new nurses that will be coming, all the students who want to be nurses who will be coming in. So we projected 25, that'll be a $4 million increase in revenue, and 26, $8 million increase in revenue. Retention, it has been very significant. It has been a very significant focus at Eastern, and that's what, can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. And that's why these numbers look so great. These are competitive numbers presented private institutions. Most public institutions don't get these numbers. Retention. Each student is worth $27,000 to Eastern. That's all in with tuition fees and, of course, covering the dormitory fees. We believe that retention has been a mitigation strategy for us for a long time, and it will continue to be in the future. So you say, oh, it's like you cut. You've done all these things. Has it adversely affected the student? Well, the next slide, please. The truth is that in 24, the board requires us to put 15% of the revenue we draw back into financial aid for students. At Eastern, we put 34% in 24 back into financial aid. So we go from 3.3 million to $7.5 million in 24 in the increase in tuition, in financial aid to supplement their tuition costs. So retention does have a direct, is affected directly by the financial aid that we give the students, and we learn that we must invest in the students' financial aid packages. So if you look at our reserves, next slide, please. There's a story to tell. They were negative when I became president at 3.7 million. Today, this little institution, well, Eastern Connecticut State University, makes $42 million in reserves. If we needed it, we could use it. We're not going to use it in 24 or 25. So the end of the story is that in 24, we will have a $2 million surplus. Next slide, please. We'll have a $2 million surplus, and in 25, we'll break even. We believe the break even is a conservative prediction or projection, and that we'll probably do better than that because this is the way we do business at Eastern. We're very conservative, and we watch every dollar. We're saying we'll at least break even in 25. Thank you. Yes, I'll take questions.
If you have a question, go ahead, please. Yes.
Leaving aside question about this in the graduate level. Undergraduate, as you described it, more institution. Given the enrollment projection, if the only initiative at the undergraduate level seems to be the nursing program. So is there other approaches that you're looking at for? And secondly, the question of transfer students, which is not really discussed in your written materials.
Yes. I think there's no other answer for Eastern but transfer students. We have to focus on transfer students, and we have had incredible success with transfer students pre-COVID. And then after COVID, we've seen a decline in the number of transfer students that are coming to Eastern. So we have a special initiative now, which is called the Liberal Arts Core. And I think I've talked to the Academic Affairs Committee uh, about that many times. And the revisions of the liberal arts core have been conducted by the faculty. The core was too big. It was unmanageable in many ways. Students criticized the core, and the core was completely revised by the faculty. That resulted in a very, very important connection between transfer and articulation and transfer. In other words, the students coming in from the community colleges now with their gen ed distribution requirement will now get credit for all that they're doing in the gen ed area because of the revisions in the liberal arts core. So we believe those numbers, Regent Bloom, will be stronger in the future.
Do you have any partnership arrangements with Charter Oak or CSU for online undergraduate level?
No, actually, I must say the provost Katuri was hired because of his vast experience in online. And he came with a very strong track record. He's been working on that with the chancellor. And we've been in conversations about what the future looks like for online through the system intervention of creating a consortium, because that's what they'd like to do. Once they create the consortium, all the universities would be participating. And as I mentioned in my remarks, there are two issues that are at hand that he's exploring with the provost from the universities. The first, of course, is the collective bargaining agreement, making sure that all of the matters in the collective bargaining agreement are attended to before any consortium can be set to start. And I'll give you an example. If the price point that Ed Klonowski talked about is a fantastic price point for Charter Oak. If one of my full professors was to teach in Charter Oak, would they get the same salary that they're getting for a course? The question is open. It has to be discussed. It has to be managed by the system office in order for that to work. So the issues of collective bargaining are number one. Regent Bloom, the second thing would be the culture shift. And we've asked the provost to come to every campus and talk to the faculty about what benefits lie therein.
Thank you.
Professor Blitz?
Is 2.2 million in 24 and breaking even in 25. But when I look at the handout that we got on page 3, now these are the figures from the June 21st Board of Regents meeting. Those numbers are different. And so the question that I have to you is, do we need to update this document to the more recent numbers, which apparently are more accurate?
Professor Blitz, the numbers she's showing are what she's projecting at the end of the mitigation. But thank you very much. Thank you, President Nunez. Next up is CT State. Further slides. President John Maduko.
Can everyone hear me? Kind of, yes? Okay. It was funny, I had a faculty member suggest that I listen to Wu-Tang before today's meeting, which I did. So shout out to Staten Island, New York. So good morning, Chair Ryan, Regent, Chancellor Chang, Professor Sasanker, and Blitz, esteemed guests and colleagues. I'm John Maduko, pronouns he, him, his. president of Connecticut State Community College. And today, my CFO and Vice President of Finance and Administration, Carrie Kelly, and I will provide an overview of CT State Community College's FY24 and FY25 budget mitigation plan. The mission of community colleges, including CT State, represents the best of us because we serve everyone with access, affordability, and academic excellence at our core. Community colleges were doing diversity, equity, and inclusion work before that was a thing. CT State's no different. The CT State's also 3 months and 15 days old. We are counting, but driven by over 60 years of community college legacy here in Connecticut. So we are in the throes of growing pains as New England's newest college. CT State is the largest institution of higher education in the state of Connecticut. We serve nearly 25% of all undergraduate students in the state of Connecticut. So think of it as 1 out of 4 undergraduate students in Connecticut is a CT State student, right? That is how big and massive and immense we are. We're also New England's and the Northeast's largest community college, also with the lowest tuition rate of any community college and university in the Northeastern United States, and we have verified that amount. So again, affordability is at our core. At the same time, we serve as the state's largest provider of workforce development training and the second largest provider of dual enrollment opportunities for high school students. So if you think of it, we are involved. Now, as you know, CT State's facing a historic fiscal deficit and structural imbalance. Beyond enrollment declines, we mirror what is happening nationally with a highly volatile higher education landscape. Penn State University flagship, Rutgers University, West Virginia University, and other large and prominent 2-year and 4-year institutions and systems face a perfect storm of financial challenges. As president, our board of regents and chancellor tasked me with addressing our deficit. We assessed the least painful option with a heavy reliance on reserves. CT State does not have enough reserves or resources to address our biennial deficit and also preserve rainy day funds for unforeseen circumstances like an act of God, a federal government shutdown. A deficit model and mindset are not sustainable and jeopardize being true to our mission and values. So through the spirit of transparency and shared governance, we had to rethink how to establish fiscal sustainability and solvency. In the audience today, I'm joined by my incredible team of vice presidents and 12 campus CEOs and presidents who I have asked to do the impossible. Close a large deficit targets and gaps while also launching the newest college in New England. And this has been an extremely painful process. We're proud to report that we have eliminated 83.6 million of our 124.9 million biennial deficit, fully extinguishing our FY24 deficit of 33.6 million and reducing our FY25 deficit from 91.3 million to $41.3 million. Our FY24 plan results in no layoffs of bargain employees, no closures of academic programs, and no closures of our 18 campus and satellite locations. In no way is this plan perfect. It has been painful, it's been arduous, and we're not reporting as happy individuals because we had to make drastic measures because every action we take impacts people, the people we serve with who are our students and our employees. At this time, I pass the baton to my colleague, Carrie Kelly, who will provide kind of an overview of the strategies and steps we've taken to get to this point. Carrie, go ahead. I want to take the microphone.
Good morning. My name is Carrie Kelly. I'm the Vice President of Finance and Administration, the Chief Financial Officer for CT State. As President Maduka was saying, we face a biennial deficit of nearly $125 million, and this reflects our structural imbalance, meaning our costs increase faster than our, can you advance the slide, please? Our costs increase faster than our revenues. We've had revenue deterioration because of declining enrollments and expiration of one-time funding and challenges in the way fringe benefits are funded. As you can see here, we face a current year deficit of $33.6 million and an FY25 deficit of 91.3. Next slide. Connecticut State Community College cannot maintain current services at this funding level. Next slide. So there are three elements to our plan, and we'll walk through them this morning. The first is deficit mitigation. The second is a technical re-estimation, and the third is the use of reserves. Next slide. So you can see here the breakdown of how we've addressed the forecast deficit in each of the fiscal years. The first year deficit of $33.6 million is fully extinguished by using $2.5 million in technical re-estimates, $24 million in deficit mitigation, and the anticipated use of $7.1 million in reserves. In FY25, we're able to resolve 55% of the forecast deficit of 91 million, reducing it down to $41.3 million. As you can see, this plan annualizes out with an increased reliance on reserves of $15 million in the second year, greater technical re-estimates, and the annualization of our deficit mitigation plan, which we'll talk a little bit more about. Next slide. So as President Maduco mentioned, our FY24 plan is notable for what it excludes. There are no layoffs of bargained employees. There are no campus or location closures and no academic program closures. Next slide. So let's talk about deficit mitigation. The process at CT State began last October and remains ongoing. It started by identifying the priorities and areas of continued investment. They are teaching and learning, student support services, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging principles, campus and public safety, physical plant and technological infrastructure. We are committed to being transparent and inclusive and upholding our principles of shared governance. And all of our work has been evaluated through the four lenses of how does it impact our students, our employees, our mission, and our equity. Next slide. The FY24 plan achieves $24 million of savings, or 5% of our expenditures, and 80% of this comes from personnel and fringe benefits, 18% from other expenses, and 2% from revenue. For FY25, we are confident that the same levels can be achieved, plus an additional $3 million in savings in part-time lecturers with an anticipated total savings of $27 million. Next slide, please. We recognize that each part of CT State needs to be part of the solution, and so each campus was given varying targets that were based on how much expenditure for each campus and the amount of discretionary funding that they have. So you can see that CT State in New Britain, the college office, achieved $4.6 million of saving, or 19% of the plan. And at the other end of the continuum, Northwestern Community College achieved $390,000, or 2% of the plan. This recognizes the unique nature of each campus and reflects the priorities of each campus. Next slide. So as I mentioned before, $19.3 million of our plan for deficit mitigation is achieved in personnel and fringe benefits in FY24, and that annualizes to 22.5 in FY25. This really aligns and mirrors where our funding comes from. Again, there are no layoffs of bargained employees in this plan, and teaching and learning and student support services are strategic priorities that need to be preserved. Although we're making significant reductions in personnel expenditures, it's really important to emphasize that CT State is still open, is still hiring, and is still filling critical vacancies. If you look at our website this morning, there are over 50 positions that are in active recruitment, 2 full-time faculty positions in assistant nursing professors, 18 part-time credit and non-credit positions, 19 full-time staff, of which 16 are bargained in a variety of areas, including welding, academic associate, IT, director of library at Housatonic, and health career advisors at Norwalk, as well as 11 part-time positions that are still in recruitment. Next slide. So in FY24, the current year, we anticipate achieving $11 million of our personnel target in full-time permanent personnel. This is achieved by eliminating vacant positions, by holding positions vacant longer, by delaying the refill of positions and hiring part-time or temporary staff, and by making permanent changes to the management structure. Next slide. Let's talk a little bit about the changes that we've made since February. Connecticut State has made significant changes in that management structure through a variety of retirements, resignations, and eliminations of positions through non-continuation of contracts. This culminates in the elimination of 8 executive positions, including 5 executive regional presidents or executive vice presidents and regional workforce officers, as well as 3 associate vice presidents. And when final, this will achieve $2.0 million in annual savings. Next slide. Additionally, there are reductions of approximately $1.8 million in salary and fringe for education assistants. These are important people on our campus who provide temporary service, whether it be while an employee, a permanent full-time employee, is out on leave. It could be for a durational project, or it could be for the seasonal nature of the work they perform. We've made reductions by reducing hours and not renewing contracts when they expire. These are difficult decisions, but important and necessary. And in total, this will achieve $1.8 million in savings. And you can see how this breaks down by functional area on the right. Next slide. Our plan also makes reductions to part-time lecturers and realigns our part-time lecturers and faculty overloads with enrollment by increased strategic course scheduling, filling classes to course caps, keeping sections inactive until others have been filled, and modifying the drop for non-payment dates for students to avoid contractual penalty payments when sections are canceled. You can see on the table to the right, the by campus, the amount of expenditure for part-time lecturers and faculty overloads, and the proposed changes and the anticipated number of sections to be reduced. Next slide. 22% of our expenditures are in the areas of other expenses, and this includes student financial aid, utilities, and all contracted goods and services. So it follows that our plan has approximately 18% of our plan, or $4.3 million, in the current year is achieved in other expenses. It's important to note that our plan has no reductions to student financial aid. Let me take you through some of the major changes in other expenses. Next slide. Public safety is and remains a strategic priority and was identified as an area of continued investment in President Maduco's 100 Days report. And the adopted budget in the current year already invests in public safety by expanding sworn officers to Norwalk campus with 1 sergeant and new police officer, adding a new police officer at Gateway, hiring 3 new buildings and grounds officers at Northwestern, and hiring a police captain to oversee accreditation of the police department. In FY24, savings of $1.3 million can be achieved by making structural changes in the deployment of our vendor security guards at Gateway, Housatonic, Middlesex, and Norwalk. Any and every change to our public safety structure is rigorously analyzed by our Chief of Police and Director of Public Safety to ensure that we have the appropriate level of security and is consistent with national best practice. Next slide. Mental health is a strategic priority, and again, it was identified as an area of continued investment in President Maduco's 100 Days report. The current year budget already invested in adding 7 wellness counselors to ensure that each campus has 1 licensed clinician on each campus. And we renewed the partnership with Timely Care for free 24/7 telehealth options for students for health and counseling services. In the current fiscal year, we received a grant from the Office of Higher Education in the amount of $600,000, so we're able to correspondingly reduce our expenditures here. Next slide. Physical plant is an area of strategic priority. We're able to save $500,000 by reducing utility costs at Housatonic. They've gone through a strategic energy program, implementing over 50 initiatives identified in an energy audit, consolidating classes into 2 buildings on Fridays to achieve utility savings at Northwestern, reducing contracted custodial services at Esnuntuck and Three Rivers, and delaying the opening of Spring Lane at Tungus. Additionally, enrollment services, we anticipate a savings of $250,000 by managing and changing the way we engage with vendor call center support and chat functions and how they're deployed. Next slide. Okay, so I think they'll catch up. So dual enrollment is a key strategy to stabilizing the college's enrollments, and it's critical to our mission. Most of the engagements we have for dual enrollment are not self-sustaining and need a significant subsidy from CT State to operate. In FY24, Norwalk has been able to negotiate a tuition payment from the local school district for the P-TECH program, and correspondingly, there's a $200,000 reduction there. And finally, I want to talk a little bit about cafeterias. They're more than just a place for nutritious meals. They're places for students to gather, and they provide vibrancy and build community. We're able to achieve $100,000 in savings through a competitive rebidding process and renegotiation with vendors and reducing the subsidies we have to provide to operate. Next slide. CT State's deficit mitigation plan does not rely on unrealistic revenue assumptions. Rather, the FY24 increase of revenue of nearly $475,000 happens by selling surplus manufacturing equipment, increasing facility rental income, increasing continuing education revenues that have already been realized at 2 campuses as they've exceeded their budget already, and recognizing some bookstore commissions that were omitted from the budget. Next slide. So as I said before, we're evaluating all of these things to better understand how they impact our students, employees, mission, and our equity principles. There are 492 separate initiatives that comprise our deficit mitigation plan, and we've taken a look at each and every one to better understand how it affects these constituencies. Approximately 27% of all of the initiatives that we put forward have some manner of a negative impact on students. We use the broadest lens possible when trying to evaluate that. We believe things that reduce hours of operation, reduce staffing, close fitness centers, or reduce student labor opportunities negatively impact students. Of the 492 initiatives, 40% negatively impact employees by reducing temporary EA positions, keeping positions vacant longer, and reducing part-time lecturers. We believe about 4% of our initiatives negatively impact our mission by having reduced staffing in critical areas. And we've evaluated and determined that none of the initiatives negatively impact our equity principles. Next slide. Let me quickly take you through the remaining parts of our plan, technical reestimates. This results, next slide, please. This results in a net improvement of about $2.4 million in the current year and $8 million in the upcoming fiscal year. There are a number of offsetting things on the revenue side that worsen the situation by $4 million. Let's take them part by part. The first part, we've exceeded our enrollment forecast for the fall and are recognizing $3.1 million in additional revenue, which is great news as we see our enrollments begin to stabilize. However, we're seeing lower than anticipated summer extension credit fees and late drop fees with a reduction of $2 million there. And we're experiencing difficulty having our students pay us in full from the prior year. So we have increased contra revenues of $5.2 million for students who have not paid us. We call that an allowance for doubtful accounts. So that's on the revenue side. On the expenditure side, we see an improvement of $6.5 million in the current year and anticipate about $8 million in the upcoming year as we have greater experience in understanding the new fringe benefit rate. We had budgeted at a blended rate of 30% for employees. We're now seeing it come in at 27.4%, with full-time employees coming in at 34%, part-time EAs greater than 17 hours at about 50.75%. Next slide. And our final part of the plan, we're going to be using next slide. We're going to be using $22.1 million in reserves. Reserves should not be used to address structural deficits. They're really here to provide temporary stability. And in FY24, we're going to be using 7.1 and 15 million we're going to be using in FY25. Next slide. Reserves really are here to provide fiscal stability, to allow us time to respond to changes in economic environment, to sustain through temporary revenue setbacks, and to respond to unexpected costs, and to be able to respond to unexpected opportunities. Exemplar organizations suggest that we should have between 4 and 6 months of cash on hand, which we do not have. So in conclusion, this plan provides a pathway to stabilize, build, and thrive. It resolves the current year shortfall of $33.6 million, and it represents difficult decisions of upholding our principles of shared governance, and inclusivity and in transparency. It preserves the college's strategic priorities, but it is notable for what it excludes. There are no layoffs of bargained employees. There are no campus closures, no academic program closures. We have closed the biennial deficit by $83.6 million, or 67%. Challenges remain. The FY forecast is $41.3 million. We believe this plan reflects the maximum deficit mitigation savings that can be achieved while preserving our strategic priorities.
Carrie, thank you. And again, let me just emphasize, we have squeezed as much as possible across our massive footprint to limit significant and detrimental devastation to our employees and students. So, this was no small feat. There were sacrifices made. I've had administrators and staff and faculty literally in tears in terms of these difficult decisions. So we do not take this lightly. To wrap up our summer, we acknowledge that you may have heard that we have laid off employees, and we've eliminated managerial, confidential, executive administrators, and we've reduced temporary employees, and we do not take that lightly. We know that balancing and maintaining the state's budget is complicated and arduous. So we continue to be thankful to Governor Lamont's administration, our General Assembly, our board, and the taxpayers of Connecticut for their support for us. We are proud to serve the great state of Connecticut, and investing in its lone community college is an investment in our communities, industries, and economy. I want to personally thank our faculty and staff, one, for keeping me on my toes 24/7. Our bargaining units and our statewide and local governance bodies, they continuously advocate for our students and our employees. They challenge everything that we do, and we welcome that challenge because it takes a village to run a college like ours. And again, we appreciate your time and happy to answer any questions you might have for us.
Oh, thank you for that. Sorry. Thank you for that. It's a very difficult thing that you've both done and your entire team and staff have done in order to do that without laying off bargain employees or making cuts to academic programs or to sites. That is a very difficult work. So I have two things to touch on. So one is enrollment, right? So that's an ongoing challenge. So can you speak more about, you spoke about some of the difficulties with the dual enrollment programs, but I think that is certainly a keystone of how you can go forward with that and how they may help us with future fiscal year issues. And the other is workforce, right? So everyone knows this is where the people who come and work in our state, they stay in our state, they power the engine. And I want to first just ensure that the cuts have not influenced or in any way compromise that goal, which is critical, I think, not just to me, but to everyone here in the state, all of the board here and everyone else in the State House as well, and the executive branch. And how can you continue to push forward on workforce and making sure that your students come out with jobs in light of everything we talked about here?
Thank you, Regent Yang. So for starters, regarding dual enrollment, it took me maybe 6 months because I was looking at enrollment, and obviously the media and everyone goes back to 10 years ago in terms of what our enrollment rates are. And to be honest, higher education is not at the enrollment levels of 10 years ago, just as a sector. That's one. I think two, just through data analysis, we realized quickly that only 3% of our total enrollment is dual enrollment students or high school students, only 3%. Even though we represent 27% of the state's dual enrollment opportunities, second only to UConn, right? So where's that enrollment? The enrollment's in high schools. So it is common for community colleges nationally where anywhere from 15 to 40% of their enrollment is dual enrollment, right? Like that is the missing link. That is the game changer for us. And there's no one else in the state of Connecticut, I believe, that can lead dual enrollment expansion other than us, CT State Community College, right? So that's a huge, huge opportunity for us, but it has to be funded, right? So other states, they fund dual enrollment opportunities, right? Someone has to pay for it. And we're constantly working with our Connecticut, with our CTEC system, so the Connecticut Technical High School system that serves between 12,000 and 14,000 students. We want to do an auto enrollment and enroll all of them, right? In addition to our conventional high school statewide, right? Because we don't think anyone else has the capacity or the footprint to do it justice. You mentioned workforce development, and we're huge proponents of workforce development. Like I mentioned earlier, we're the biggest supplier of workforce development training statewide. But workforce development is costly. It is a small fortune, right, to operate and sustain a manufacturing program, right, to operate a nursing program, right? I mentioned earlier, we have the most affordable tuition rate in the Northeastern United States, public or private. I dare anyone to find another institution more affordable than us, but someone has to pay for it. We are heavily subsidized. We were at Electric Boat last week, General Dynamic Electric Boat in Groton, Connecticut, and they were ecstatic that we were there, right? That we are the leaders of manufacturing training in the state of Connecticut. But even Electric Boat mentioned, faster is not better. They're like, it takes time, right, for quality and high stakes. So we are stuck in the middle where people want faster, right? But you talk to our faculties about qualities, about competencies, about learning outcomes. So we are doing our best to meet the shortages, right? But that involves an investment, and tuition and fees do not cover the overall cost of manufacturing and workforce development. They never have, right? Now, if we increase our tuition, sure, we can cover those costs. It goes against our mission of being affordable and about access, right? So that's been the tug of war going on, but we're going to be continuing to work with our industry partners and the legislator to do good work for this state.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, did you want to go, Colleen? Go ahead.
I have a question. It's Regent James remotely. Question and a comment. As you consider, I applaud your efforts on the workforce piece, particularly in it, and encourage you to expand the partnership opportunities and the explorations that you're doing. That we know that the PTech program at Norwalk Community College with IBM has been a proven success model, and happy to see that you are doing more of that. If there is a way for us to facilitate those types of conversations, particularly with the new employers that are coming into the state of Connecticut, and I think that's a joint effort between the business community, the legislative community, as well as the educational community. That would be, I think, another additional support to the revenue issue that we are talking about. The other question I have, or observation, is that the changing demographics of the community college student, it is increasingly becoming older, resembling more like the Charter Oak student population. So while we still have a significant number of students who are graduating from high school, we have an increasing number of students that are looking to advance their earnings potential and who are already adults and commuting students and working. So how is that figuring into your thoughts in terms of all of the strategies?
Yes, thank you, Regent James. So regarding non-traditional students, it's really important to recognize, about 75%, if not more, maybe 70% of our students are part-time, and they're part-time because they're working, right? They're police officers, they're line workers, they're parents, et cetera. It takes them longer to graduate. I think, too, many of our students have life dynamics, right? Kids with disabilities, right? Non-negotiable conversations in your household. You got to drop off the kids at the bus stop before you go to work. That is my household, or I am divorced, right? That's my life, right? Those are our students, right? And recognizing that a family sustaining career has to be the end goal. So we hear a lot of, well, put these students into entry level jobs. Now, how do you pay your bills in Connecticut? How? Right? The issues of our students are American issues in terms of affordability and access, right? So we have a responsibility to advocate for our students first, then obviously industry and everything else. So Regent James, we're thinking about that piece. We're recognizing that we need more support for wraparound services, right? We have to have alternative delivery mechanisms in terms of our services and offerings, but that only happens in partnership through shared governance and with our faculty, who they themselves see our students in the front lines and what they're going through. So we're thinking about that. We've seen an explosion, a double-digit gain in readmit students, many of which are non-traditional students, right? So again, we're seeing the leveling off and the stabilization of more enrollment opportunities, but there's so much work that has to be done as it relates to our students who are military and veterans and parents and employed and disabled and beyond, right? So again, we have a heavy lift because CT State Community College, we don't turn people away. I respect my four-year colleagues, but they get to be selective. They get to choose who they want to serve. We don't, right? And we own that we own that mission, right? But that requires an investment, not only in us, but directly into them.
Thank you.
So I have two questions. And the first I think is probably best directed at you, CFO Kelly. When I'm looking at these numbers, and I don't fully understand them, but it seems to me that the net cost of fringe for the community college is double its highest point, not only in the past 5 years, but in the past 15 years. And that represents a significant, if that's true, a significant reduction in state support for our community college. Is that number right? I think it's something like 47 million this year. It was 23 odd million in 2019. I don't think anything has ever been higher.
Let me see. Am I on here? So thank you for that question. And I think we don't want to have any confusion. We have made a technical reestimate now that we have more experience on what our fringe benefit rate is, but it doesn't diminish the fact that we have a negative impact to CT State because of the way fringe benefits are funded. And so exactly as Professor Sasanker has said, historically, CT State did not pay for very much of our fringe benefits out of our operating fund, meaning that the state block grant for fringe benefits covered a significant portion of our fringe benefit costs. So in the last budget enacted, there was a change in the way fringe benefits were funded, and it was now going to be blind as to where the employee was funded from. And instead, there was a new relationship where the state would pick up the unfunded pension liability and the institutions of higher education would pay for the other component parts of fringe benefits. So this change has, I believe, negatively impacted the community colleges. Previously, we had forecast that at about $47 million in the current fiscal year, as Professor Sasanker said. Now with our reestimate on the fringe rate, we believe it's closer to $40 million, so a $6.5 million improvement. But again, this is a contributing factor as to why CT State continues to have structural fiscal imbalance, and it exacerbates our underlying challenges.
Thank you. I mean, because there are two pots of money these days now because of the way that the fringe has been recalculated, and we have our block grant that is itself returning to 2019 levels. I believe that's what is meant when we hear that we need to return to pre-pandemic levels. But 2019 levels were particularly low historically. They were a significant reduction if you take the previous 10 years into consideration. So that is one cut. And then this one is quite another significant one. So I just want to make sure that we're all realizing the extent to which we are draining the community college of resources. The second thing I think may be more directed towards the board and the public and whoever else, because what I'm hearing here is not your vision for the community college, Dr. Maduko. I'm hearing our coping mechanisms. So I kind of want to talk about what we're coping with. Um, so when we say no layoffs, and I think you've kind of addressed this also, President Maduko, no layoffs of full-time permanent staff. But the workforce of our community college is 75% short-term contingent workers with no benefits. That's who we employ. So because of the reductions that I just mentioned, like in 2019, we were at a decade-long record low. Those short-term workers staff the essential functions of our colleges. They are not ancillary. They are in every office performing essential functions. You lay off one EA because their contract expires at the end of the year. That's not a layoff, but it's a layoff. It's easy, but it's not, but it's not, the consequences aren't easy. So what we're talking about here, because I think we're also we are taking for granted a 5% tuition increase, right, going forward. We are actually describing conditions where we are offering significantly less to students for more money. And the students that we are talking about is the student population that's the most economically disadvantaged, most likely to come from racially segregated high schools. And college is historically expensive in other places if we're not talking about public higher ed. And our students are a unique set of students who need the community college as a bridge to college very often, to bachelor's degrees and further very often, and to other workforce, et cetera, right? It's more and more necessary to an actual sustainable life, these, family sustaining careers. So, when we know that the equity principles have not, in that slide, right? Maybe internally, we are thinking very carefully about how to abide within certain principles of equity. But in terms of the state has chosen as its sacrificial lamb for the sake of the state budget, the most vulnerable people who are to build our future, right? In order to compensate for our failures in the past, to pay our debts to past workers. So while, as far as the board is concerned, the aspect of equity that we talk about is the structural aspects of what institutions do and to what extent they exhibit justice. And this is so far from that. And I understand, again, we did not put ourselves in this position. But, when we were proposing the consolidation of the community college in 2017, after 10 years of cuts, and the assumption was to be that we needed to extract more savings from the community college, not a single question was asked about that premise, that assumption, and now here we are. So I just want to make sure, request that when we are talking about the amount of money that we need, I understand that it's possible to cut to the extent that you have described here, but I don't think that it is advisable or even ethical to cut to that level. And I would like to hope that we can ask the state for more than you've recommended. And I hope that the board recommends that also.
Thank you.
I agree with that last statement, and I've said this publicly in previous meetings. I hope that this process will demonstrate to the state government, governor's office, OPM, and the state legislature that we are taking this process seriously. We're trying to use taxpayers' money responsibly, but that the decision they made, particularly for FY25, didn't relate to reality in terms of what's necessary to serve our students and to work towards the future prosperity and well-being of the state of Connecticut. I do have a quick question.
Yes.
The chart that you shared with us shows no revenue increase based on new enrollments in either FY24 or 25.
Yeah.
I'm like Regent Yang, really excited about some of the new initiatives, like the dual enrollment, expensive though it may be, like the workforce, the Career Connect, like Complete Connecticut, like the nursing
Yeah.
introduction to new. When will we start to see enrollment increases as a result of those new initiatives?
Yeah, absolutely. So we project that FY26 will begin to see an uptick in our enrollment, right? For everyone's knowledge, Connecticut, second only to the state of Arizona, took the highest level of enrollment declines for community colleges in the country, right? So it was significant. So crawling back from what we lost is a huge effort. Now, what we've put into our budget mitigation plans is conservative because we don't want to put inflated, right, or theoretical projections in there, and then we're hiring to those projections. So we want to overshoot everything we put in here, but we have to be conservative because I think it's been mentioned by Professor Blitz and Sasenker and others that, well, in the past, it was guaranteed, it was save money. In the past, there was double-digit enrollment gains, and I think that led to some of the headaches we're seeing today. So we're trying to be reasonable and conservative, but also, despite what's in the plan, we're being aggressive in terms of a lot of initiatives in terms of nursing expansion, workforce expansion, dual enrollment expansion to really kind of help buffer and increase our enrollment. Yeah.
How closely are we working with the Workforce Investment Board through the?
Almost daily, if not hourly.
What, thank goodness, but, I sit on that board.
Yes. Yes.
And many of the programs that are being planned and created are duplicates of what bothers me. That we're doing a fine job. But why are they duplicating efforts? Federal money that is continuing to come in. Every time I go to a meeting, there's another 3 million that has been given just so the live in the Northwest region. Well, let's direct that money here. So, I mean, it just bothers me, and I don't think we,
Yeah.
of them in the state.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Yes.
No, but we just have.
Great.
Very much. Thank you, Dr. Maduko.
One more question.
I'm sorry.
Rich?
Regent Balducci, did you have a question? Want to use the microphone, please?
Rich.
Need a phone microphone? Sure. First of all, just a couple of quick thoughts. I may wander for a minute or so, but just bear with me. I think the governor, the legislature, and leadership at the House and Senate and OPM are looking at what we're doing. I think they're really paying attention and thinking we haven't done what we probably should have done in the past. I think we're on the right step with the leadership here, with the presidents and CFOs and members of the board. And we have faculty and staff here also paying attention because it's important to them. I have one quick question, though. You had indicated that there were some executive positions that are no longer around. I think there were like 7 or 8
Yes.
vice presidents or assistant vice presidents, and 3, they're gone, and that's saving us $2 million a year. How long is that? Are we still paying some of those individuals?
Chair Balducci, yes. I want to be cautious as we talk about it. This has happened through a variety of retirements, resignations, and some elimination of position through non-continuation of contracts. So some folks are working out their notice periods or are receiving a payout to separate.
So as we move forward, it should get better. That money is going to go away, and we aren't going to be paying that out for President Maduko and Connecticut State.
Correct.
When we look at this, we've got diminishing numbers of students graduating from high schools. It's just the way it is. It isn't what it was 10 years ago. It's diminished, which means then that we have fewer students that are going to be applying for admission to our colleges and to our universities, which means diminishing dollars. And that's where it's at. That's where the dollars really are at. And I know what we have to do, we have to raise retention, hopefully, and we have to somehow garner new students to attend our universities and our colleges. And one of the thoughts that I had, and I mentioned it before, we have an articulation agreement, okay, which is lousy right now. It needs to be re-upped, re-corrected, and I know we're going to need faculty and staff in agreement to accept courses. The worst thing to happen is we have students, and in our community colleges, many of them are lower income students. Not all, but we have a certain amount there. And they have taken 12 or 15 credits and now want to transfer to one of our universities, and they want to apply those 15 credits, and they find out 6 are acceptable and the rest go by the board. That's crazy. You talk about retention, you talk about growth in our university system. It doesn't happen that way. And one of the things I say to you, John, President Newcomb, is that, you know, we have to really go over and redo that articulation agreement. And I don't mean in 26 or 27. I mean ASAP, as soon as we can. And I'm not putting a burden on you, but I think in the long run, it's going to be helpful for us as we go forward to attract students, paying and non-paying students at the college level, who will then move on to our universities, Central, Southern, Eastern, and Western. We've got the best universities around and the best price. It's a steal for what they end up paying right now.
Absolutely.
And I think it's something where we have professors and instructors that are outstanding and staff that supports everybody. And I think that's where we have to go. And I think that is something we have to move into. Correcting this articulation agreement, which will bring in students to our community colleges, which will even better bring students to our university system. And people will say, you know, this is for a bang for the buck. You can't beat what we do in this system.
Great.
You just can't do it. I think that's pretty much, the only other thing I had was more online. I wonder if there's any direction that we're going to take with more online studies at the universities, not so much at the community college, but at the universities, to help move students along who may need a course that's really only offered at Southern, but I'm at Central. But is there an online course I can take to help me move forward with my graduate degree? You know, that type of thing. For that, I'll just keep quiet, but I just thought that was.
Thank you.
I
Okay.
think it's important we move in that direction. Regent Bloom? You'll need this.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
We can make it quick, please.
Yes, I'm
We've
going to make
got
it very quick.
some-
And thank you. I think I want to thank Dr. Meduco, and I think the report was very comprehensive and very thorough. I want to ask the converse, following up on what Regent Balducci says. One of the things ASA has talked about is seamless transfer of students within the system.
Yes.
And I don't want to put you on the spot, but this is from down up. So it's not, I would like to think about which of the university, where you found the most cooperation in moving students. You don't have to answer this here because it's an incriminating question, but you know, obviously this has been a process that's not completed, and I assume this is something that we have talked about with ASA. It is, I think, a very attractive point. Regent Balducci made it very attractive to say to a student, if you start here, you can go with all your credits to one of our universities without having to pay again, without having to take the course again, etc.
Yeah.
So I think that needs to be a priority
Yes.
on your end and a priority at the other end, which we will try, I hope, to encourage.
Agreed.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Professor. I really am. Dr. Meduco, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Western Connecticut State University, President Manohar Singh.
Good morning. This is Manohar from Western Connecticut State University. Thank you all for being here and giving us an opportunity to highlight what you're doing and what challenges we are facing. This is an opportunity for all of us to reassess the immediate and also the long-term strategic posturing of the system and the higher education within our state. So I'll start here with a bit of introduction as to who we are, and that is we are in the Western Connecticut region, the only public university, four-year comprehensive, serving even a part of the Western Connecticut as well as Eastern Mid-Hudson Valley. Our proximity to New York being a very attractive proposition for a diverse population. Danbury as a town is quite diverse, and within the last 10 years, they added 150% in Hispanic population between the two censuses. So that's who we serve, where there are the 25% Hispanic student population, and we are applying for HSI designation as we speak. That means there are some unique attributes that we must focus on when we talk about Western Connecticut State University, given where we are located and who we serve. That brings today's focus question, that is, why are we in a situation where we are in before I long on to our where we want to be? Over the past 8 to 9 years, enrollments have been going down, and the revenues commensurate with that have been going down as well. And then there was pandemic. Those are external factors to a large extent, but then internally, there is some responsibility to be taken that expenses within Western did not go down commensurately for not just by choice, but also there are union, there are tenured faculty, there are policies, processes that we must respect as shared governance principled institution. All said and done, we ended up by this year a $12 million deficit. Good news is we have been able to slash that deficit to just $5 million. $7 million of deficit has been slashed or planned to be slashed during this year. That also means that when we had $2.3 million of reserves in negative 2 years back, we are projecting we'll be able to bring them back to positive at about 5 million. So resilience, stability is in the works. Challenges are still there because we have two campuses. It is difficult to manage two campuses because of facilities. With the enrollment trends being online, when we push online, your rooms in the dorms are empty at times. That means you have to shutter some facilities because there is not enough occupancy. But still, those buildings are to be maintained so that they do not get dilapidated. Those expenses will have to be maintained at least over the short-term period. The strategies that we'll be following for the mitigation will follow my initial where we want to be seeing our university. And I'll not be repeating everything on the slide. This is for your record. This is where we, as faculty colleagues, are thinking of going. A new strategic plan is being launched as we speak this week for the long term, which will make Western a hub for technology-infused liberal and fine arts educational institution. Almost like a polytechnic model serving the Western Connecticut. Those areas that we are focusing will be the ones that are emerging technologies. Enrollments will go up, and there are national models, especially our catchment areas where population is increasing, and Danbury being the largest high school. In the short run, however, we need to take a few steps, which we have done, and those are what we call as, next slide please, for the deficit mitigation plan. What I'm going to be presenting here is what you've already been given an overview by our CFO of the system. But I do want to highlight that We have reduced operations and facilities and infrastructure spending till we get some additional revenues. So it is a revenue increasing and cost cutting dynamic optimization, if you would. When it comes to cost cutting, we have our operational facilities, we have reduced our discretionary spendings, we have attained workforce efficiencies. The numbers are in one of the slides deck that you have provided by RCF of the system. Those are operations activities and facilities. The other aspect of cost cutting is certainly from the academic program optimization, if you would. We have realigned, redesigned, reimagined programs. The good news of all is that we have not violated any shared governance principles. My faculty colleagues have been kind and generous enough with their time. They're the ones coming up with proposals and also approving within the shared governance model, internal governance processes for new curriculum, etc. So as the time, the realignment and reimagination of programs cuts some cost by combining departments, if that is acceptable in the real sense of savings. My faculty is working towards that. At least they are in that, our partners. Now, when it comes to the numbers, the 24 fiscal year, our expenditure reductions are 6.6 million, of which personnel are 2.3 million, of which the operational initiatives are about 4.2 million. So that makes 6 point something. And then that, in addition to some adjustments of about $500,000, still leaves a gap of about 5 million. So that gap will be plugged by support from either our own institution or from the system office. We are stable because we're building our reserves. We have a future to look at because we are being innovative. And I will mention that when I am talking in terms of new programs, new admissions. How are we going to then sustain this deficit reduction and building it to surplus and reserve expansion? And there you have increased enrollments from transfers, from Complete CD, which is being launched today, and we are participating in that, from graduate enrollments, from international enrollments. All my graduate programs are online. We'll be expanding online presence as well. Coming back to non-degree programs, those generate non-tuition alternative revenues. Financial sustainability would require us to look innovatively at non-traditional revenues and non-traditional students. And that's where we already have those initiatives that are targeting stop-outs and adult learners. Going back to long-term, those strategies will now be building at the short term, but will be expanded in the long term. And that means not only we are looking at numbers and students as bodies, but we're looking at what our mission is, and that is your mission of serving your community, given where we are in Danbury. We're also looking at, in our long-term strategic plan, that we look at our diverse populations. And one of our visions that we are seeing here for our Western community is very much a big focus on inclusivity and accessibility. That means our population also requires, given the population mix, an additional retention focus. We have started a first-year experience model. We have started additional financial aid. 1.2 million were diverted from my operating expenses to financial aid. We also have new advising model to offer wraparound services, retention, recruitment, new programs, and innovation in delivery modes, in addition to our partnerships with our corporate and state agencies for workforce development, given that they are going to be in technology-infused, technology-intensive job market. That's where we are going to be headed to. So short term, we will plug the gaps. We have successfully done that. My applications this fall 24 are up by 7.3%. And I have some other numbers that I'll be happy to share. Incoming class size this year was 13% larger than previous year's incoming class for undergraduates. And finally, we have over 5 new programs. That means innovation in programs, recruitment strategies, and retention. They are yielding results, and we're very hopeful of that. I'm open for questions.
Got new programs, some of the, great if they're with international, can't hear me, I know. With the international recruitments and going into high schools, I think is really is a big deal, by the way, going into the high schools. But you talk about new programs, with all due respect to the debt you have, starting new programs cost money. We ought to take a look at Central, Southern, and Eastern, if they're offering those programs, because the redundancy is going to cost money and maybe not necessarily a good idea. I think some of the other thoughts you have with recruitment, et cetera, I think are absolutely outstanding. But beginning new programs when you're looking at 90, looking at, I can't remember, we've got just 2 schools with a problem and you happen to be one of them. Without having to go deeper in debt, I suppose what I'm saying is to take a look at new programs as opposed to improving and expanding the programs that you have there so students and faculty can thrive rather than have to worry about jobs and positions, et cetera.
Thank you for the question. Really, Regent Baldacci, this is the core of our existence. We have a mission to accomplish. We have to reinvent ourselves every day. We are the thought leaders in higher education. Instead of expanding the programs that are not being sought after by the community and the students, we should reinvent, not duplicating. We are the only Homeland Security master's degree in system. We are also going to be, God help, in the processes that are quite sometimes long. But I'm very hopeful we would also be the first program to offer an MS in artificial intelligence. My colleagues at the university faculty have already sent draft proposals to me. Within a record of 6 weeks, I am a president old by about 8 weeks now. They are responding. I'm very aware of not expanding programs that are not yielding students and going in for the new ones without duplicating. And more importantly, we have partnerships with Central, Southern, and Charter Oak to offer those programs not duplicatively and share revenues and students. So your point is very well taken. We will be very, very meticulous and prudential when we talk about which new programs, what timeline, with whose partnership, and with what corporate and businesses and state agencies giving us some support. Thank you.
Thank you, President Singh. Next up, Southern Connecticut State University, President Dwayne Smith.
Thank you, everyone, please.
Good morning. Thank you. To the Board of Regents, thank you for this opportunity to share Southern's deficit mitigation strategy. I have here this afternoon, wow, Southern's VP of Finance, Mark Brzezinski. And Southern is this wonderful place, and I am so humbled and honored to serve as a president, as a first generation college student, the first in my family to earn a PhD in 180 years, I understand the importance of this institution. Currently now, we have about 50% students of color. So it's the first time ever in our history where a minority majority serving institution. Our first year class, I should say, 63% students of color. 57% of them are the first in their family to attend college, and 54% of them are Pell eligible. So we have a mighty, mighty opportunity in terms of social justice. No better or no greater cause is providing opportunities for our population here. And we do great work, and I'm going to go into our deficit mitigation. So it's not about the access, but it's about how do we serve our students. So this year was a great year for us in terms of retention. We talk about how we're going to expand our enrollment. We're going to expand it not only with new students, but how we retain our students. So this year, we had an increase in retention of Black women, 7.3% in 1 year. Hispanic men, 8.2%. Women, 2.6, 3.3 men, and so I can go on and on. But the goal is how do we produce this deficit mitigation as well as provide the services that's so necessary for those first generation low wealth individuals. So the attached materials state that Southern's Board of Regents budget approved on June 21st for fiscal year 24 projected a surplus of 5.5 million and a deficit of 12.1 million for fiscal year 2025. I am pleased to report that Southern is projecting an increased surplus for fiscal year 2024 and an elimination of the 2025 deficit with our current strategy. Southern plans to have a surplus of more than 8 million for fiscal year 24 when we report at mid-year. So first, let's discuss fiscal year 2024. Most of the overperformance comes from exceeding our enrollment and housing occupancy projections. That includes a higher level of retention. And this was reported to our CFO to this body late August. Originally, we projected a 3% decrease in enrollment. However, we outperformed our initial projection with a 1.8 increase in full-time undergraduate and graduate enrollment. And what did that net? That netted more than 4.2 million in full-time revenue, 2.7 million residence life and food, and interest income of 1.1 million, increasing revenue growth to 7.7 billion. This, in our opinion, bodes well for our future. Seize in the moment. Okay, I forgot about the PowerPoint. Let's move it up. So, all into it. Okay, there we are. We're right there. Seize in the moment. We're firmly realigning our strategic focus to be composed of a balanced combination of new revenue generation and operational adjustments informed by a new strategic plan that we just launched, and its emphasis on finding several new paths to enrollment growth in fiscal year 25. We note that while the majority of our deficit mitigation strategy is based on projected enrollment growth, the enrollment-based revenue is reflective of a substantial increase in financial aid. So the 1.8 million, next slide please, in expenditure reduction should be viewed in this light. Absent an increase in financial aid, the amount of mitigation by expense reduction would be almost $3 million. This slide and the next contains some representative examples of mitigating strategies that we intend to employ. Principal among these efforts is a projected 3.5% growth in full-time enrollment, yielding 4 million in tuition, 4.1 million in new fees. I'm not aligning with this, so I'm not sure what's happening with the PowerPoint, so we're just going to keep it going. So we have 3.5 growth in our new full-time enrollment, yielding 4.0 million in tuition, 4.1 million in new fees, 2.2 million in related increasing in housing occupancy and dining uses, for a total of 10.3 million. It is important to note that the 3% growth in enrollment is applied to full-time only for fiscal year 25. Part-time enrollment is projected to be flat in fiscal year 2025. And so additionally, extending a selective hiring freeze until 2025 will yield at least $500,000 in savings. Southern implemented a hiring freeze last fiscal year, which resulted in a surplus and allowed Southern to start this fiscal year with almost 40 fewer budgeted positions. We anticipate possible savings from unfilled vacant positions, from voluntary retirements, and the reduction of adjuncts, which will reduce expenses by $1.2 million. We also anticipate increases in interest income and in conference revenue. So there's a question about alternative models for deficit mitigation. What happens if we don't meet that goal? It is important to note that Southern recognizes the emphasis on new revenue in this plan. While we believe very strongly that our goals will be met or even exceeded, for the record, the university has funds held in reserve that can be tapped into in the event they're needed. If we do not meet the 3.5 goal that we have set for ourselves, we will focus on further reductions in expenses and a combination of pulling funds from our cash reserves. Southern has an enrollment strategy plan in place to achieve these outcomes. For instance, there's a greater emphasis on transfer enrollment from CT State. Southern witnessed a 14% increase in transfer enrollment in 2023. The Gateway campus is Southern's #1 transfer feeder school, and Housatonic Community College is a #2 transfer feeder school. We just had a special open house for CT State Guided Pathway Advisor, or GPAs, and 9 of the 12 campuses were represented. We also placed a greater emphasis on the recruitment of veterans and active military personnel. Currently, we have about 250 veterans, and this is the highest we've had in 3 years. It was discussed before, we have a greater emphasis on marketing adult learners with prior credit but no credential. It was said that there's 40 million of those individuals in this country. In Connecticut, the state alone, we have 250,000. And so we are connecting with over 2,000 of those former Connecticut scholars who have college credit, no credential, no debt, and also in good academic standing. In terms of the NEBI rate, we have added New York and New Jersey for 2023, and Pennsylvania will be added in 2024. Our NEBI states include Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and this strategy is paying dividends. We just added New York, but we had a council event that was held in Long Island with 15 counselors attended from 10 schools representing more than 4,000 prospective high school seniors. Currently, we have more than 100 applications from that event. We believe that these strategies will bode well in eliminating the deficit in fiscal year 2025. This concludes our presentation. We welcome any questions or comments.
Exciting what you have planned. The only question I have is looking at our chart and the projections in the mitigation plan for Southern compared to the other parts of our system. Yours is pretty high. It's on the high end. And what hope I can ask it this way: how do we think about that in terms of what the other institutions are projecting in terms of new enrollments with new initiatives?
That's a great question that was asked of us quite some throughout this period of time. So I go back to last year, this was a great year. As I stated, we had a 1.8% enrollment growth, a full-time 1.2% enrollment of FTE, full-time equivalent. And that equated to $7.2 million in additional revenue. And so if you look at last year's numbers, we were up 10% of our first-year students. And this year, to meet that 3.5, we're just projecting a 1% increase. We had 2% increase in retention. That's the most difficult area to retain students, 2%. We're projecting a 0.5%. In our graduate enrollment, we had an increase of 3.6%. We're only estimating maybe less than a percentage point. In our transfer students, we were up 14%, and we're estimating about less than a 1%. So I believe that the momentum is on our backs, and we can achieve that. I believe that the population in Connecticut, particularly the scholars that we serve, deserve to be reached out to. We know about this cliff, but there are a whole bunch of people in this state that are not being serviced, and we would do that.
So just quickly, thank you for anticipating my question from the last session regarding having a plan B.
Welcome.
But just as really just a statement, you did mention reserves. Reserves really need to be our last resort. So I hope that, you know, some of the discussions you had about finding further efficiencies, because it does take time for those efficiencies to come in, are being anticipated and worked on in advance of that, or well in advance of any tapping of reserves. We would not want a repeat of any situation that other institutions may have encountered, including your own, where reserves were drawn down because of operating deficits, which certainly should be planned around.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Right, thank you, President Smith. Let's have slides ready for Central State, Connecticut State University. And last, but certainly not least, the leader of our healthiest institution financially, President Zulma Toro.
Good afternoon already. Thank you, Madam Chair, distinguished members of the Board of Regents, Chancellor Shan, my colleagues from Central, and the members of my team and colleagues from the other institutions. Today, I am here with our Provost, Kim Costellos, and with our Chief Budget and Compliance Officer, Lisa Butcher. Let me start by saying I have the pleasure of leading the first public institution of higher education in the state of Connecticut. It was created in 1849. It so happened that we are the largest of the 4 universities within the system. It's my hope that the Board of Regents recognize that we are the STEM institution of the system. We are the only 4-year institution within the system with technology and engineering programs, and we hope it stays that way. Today, so happened while I was here that we got the notification that Central has been designated as a national center of academic excellence in cyber defense through academic year 2028 by the National Security Agency. And that is possible because of the programs, academic programs we offer in that. So we are definitely making good progress to accomplishing these shared and collective goal we have at Central. Let me tell you, my main accomplishment as president of the institution in the last 7 years is the pleasure of leading a very committed faculty and staff. What I am going to share with you as the spokesperson of Central has been possible because of the dedication, good work of all the faculty, staff, students, and the members of the administration. Let me also share with you other examples of why we are making progress to accomplishing this collective goal. Central was recently recognized by the Student Affairs Administrators in Higher Education for our work with first-generation students. In addition to that, NECHI selected Central as the only university in the state and only 2 universities in New England to be part of a pilot program funded by the Lumina Foundation to seek a framework and develop a framework for the accreditation of non-credit courses because of our solid program in continuing education. NECHI also identified us as the presenter of our approach to allocating resources based on strategic planning. That will be a presentation our team will make in December. Furthermore, the American Association of State Colleges and Universities piloted their department chairs professional development program at Central. We were used as the model for the nation. The American Association of State Colleges and Universities has identified 2 of our programs as promising practices: our Success Central Peer Coaching Program and our Traveler's Edge Career Development Program. So that shows, at least in concrete ways, how much progress we are making to accomplishing this collective goal. Let's talk about our finances, because that's part of our collective goal. We have seen an increase in the estimate of our surplus for fiscal year 24, a significant increase. And that is due mainly to the following. May I have the next one? We are following 3 key performance indicators that are mainly responsible for that difference between what the board learned about us in June and the number you got today. First, the enrollment numbers. We saw a 2.6% increase in headcount versus last fall. We saw a 3.8% increase in full-time equivalent students. In addition to that, our first-time full-time class increased by 14.7%, well above our established goal of 1,350 students. In addition to that, our retention went up by retention rate from first year to second year went up by 2.1%. Our goal, long-term goal for that metric is 81.5, but more important is the retention from second to third year, which was 6.8%. The third metric we follow is the housing occupancy. In that metric, we saw an increase of 14.2%, well above our revised goal of 2,100 students. That explains the difference between the number you saw in June and the number you are seeing today for fiscal year 24 surplus. Our financial position, the next one, next, is where it is because we started working on our finance almost 7 years ago when I joined as president of the institution. We have reviewed more than 42 programs, departments, but we have conducted more than 60 reviews because we have some duplicated. That those reviews have resulted in recommendations to contain costs, to make additional investment, or to change some processes and procedures. There is a report that was sent to the system office and it's publicly available in the Senate, our Senate webpage that details those reviews and the outcome of those reviews. In addition to that, in fiscal year 21, we reduced our base budget by $13 million in anticipation of what was going to be the impact of the pandemic. We saw that coming, and that thought to the base budget has continued to be in place since then. In fiscal year 21 as well, we started a hiring freeze process, and I know my colleagues, the faculty and staff, sometimes have criticized me because of that hiring freeze, but it has worked. And we have a very sound process in place. We continue to hire, but we rethink every position and we hire at the lowest possible level. We continue with looking at every aspect of our operation, and we continue to identify cost containment and revenue enhancement initiatives. But our main strategy for financial sustainability is we are laser focused on enrollment, retention, and housing occupancy. And we do this as a team. You should look at some of the pictures we have from the last open house, full of faculty, staff, and student workers. It's really a happy time for all of us when we have open houses. Again, I cannot ask for a better team, the central team, and very important members of that team, faculty and staff and students as well. Next one. Here is a summary of our end-year operational balances, and I want to make a couple of comments about this. These are exactly the same numbers you saw before, presented in a different way for fiscal year 24 and 25. It's important to call your attention to some facts. In fiscal year 2022, the system office and the board changed the funding formula for the 4 universities. That resulted in a reduction of our allocation by close to $2 million. That was in fiscal year 2022. Despite the reduction, we ended the year with a surplus. For fiscal year 23, and this is estimated because we don't have the audited financial statement, we are projecting a surplus of over $13 million. For this coming year, we are projecting a surplus of $21 million, and for next year, a surplus of close to $5 million. There are a couple of assumptions that are very important here. We are assuming that for next fall, we will see a 2% increase in enrollment. We are assuming that we will see a 5% in tuition increase, and that we will have at least 2,200 students in our dorms. We think that that increase in enrollment is achievable because of what we saw this past fall, but more importantly, because of the recommendations that did emerge from our academic program planning process. And we will get to that because that's what we will be working on as we move forward to maintain our financial sustainability. If you look at the finances for Central at a glance, these are 3 very important performance metrics. Our reserves at the end of this last year, June 2023, we're estimating that close to $99 million. Our enrollment, as I said, increased by more than 2%, and our housing occupancy surpassed our goal for close to 200 students. Here is where we are going. Here is our plan for the future. This plan, again, was developed in consultation and collaboration and with the good work of our faculty and staff. We did that in record time. You see, I think 6 weeks. But our provost led the process, the faculty did responded, the deans responded, and here is the plan. And we have organized the strategies by revenue generation, strategies, increasing student success, cost containment, recruitment and enrollment, and overall recommendation. It's imperative for us to get the approval of the new college, the College of Health and Rehabilitation Sciences, that it's my understanding will be considered by this board next month. That is extremely important for us because that will house a number of new programs, but also a number of existing programs that are growing in the healthcare area. Something else that is very important for us is continue the development of academic programs to respond to workforce needs. Among those, an accelerated nursing program, graduate program in social work, and other programs in engineering that I don't want to share yet, but they are okay. Another big initiative, which is a multidisciplinary initiative, are the undergraduate and graduate programs in climate change studies, which is a completely different way of putting together academic programs. And I am very excited about that new strategy. And again, that was the work of the faculty. We are working with the state in the establishment of a forensic lab that will facilitate our work not only in criminal justice and criminology, but also in chemistry. We will continue to examine the way we offer courses. Let me say that we have tried the 8-week semester. It has worked very well for us. The late start, just learned that from the faculty and the provost. I didn't know that we have some courses that instead of starting them exactly when we are supposed to, we are starting them 2 weeks later and we get them more enrollment that way. There are a number of new initiatives for modality and course scheduling. The same is true with what is going on with our math department. You may know that a lot of students struggle with math. So we are looking at what we can do to retain more students and remove obstacles. We are looking at different models for tutoring as well, so we can explore different modalities, different locations, different combination of tutoring and offer as many tutoring program help as possible. The interdisciplinary collaborations are extremely important for us because we have very, very strong disciplinary and interdisciplinary programs already, like these studies, for example, and there are others. And we are going to continue to build on that. 2 additional priorities for us, our partnership with K-12. We have a number of partnerships, including dual enrollment. We are growing those. And our partnerships with the community college and with employers. We are looking at a very different model for our partnership with employers in such a way that it's easier for employers to recruit our students, offer internships, and it's easier for our students to get those internships. I hope that the model will come to the board very soon, hopefully by the beginning of January. And finally, we did develop a cost model for our programs, and we have identified 5 areas in which we need to continue the work. And those are chemistry, journalism, tech, engineering education, music, and nursing. We are not going to eliminate a nursing program at all, but we are looking at what else we can do with the nursing program to contain the cost. And we are doing something with each one of those departments. But I want to say we are not eliminating program. On the contrary, we are strengthening our program and investing in strategic areas. Finally, we are central. Next. Next slide. No? We are central. That is the new branding campaign. Some of the members of our campus wearing t-shirts. We are central. I will entertain any questions you may have.
For your very comprehensive presentation. And I think the points that you make, particularly with respect to the question of the projection of budget surplus or deficit for 24 and 25, where you've talked about a $20 million surplus for 24 and a projected $5 million for 25. Again, the point that I made in addressing President Nunez, the numbers that we have in the report that we got today are projections as of June. I would hope that CFO Blanchard will update those projections to the more recent ones, especially because we have the third week enrollment numbers already clamped down, as it were. I would just add one more thing, which is, in this particular case, I was able to participate in this APP process, as we now call it. And I can say that the way in which shared governance was exercised was also exemplary. And in the sense that we discussed this at the level of the department chairs, at the level of the departments, at the level of the University Planning and Budget Committee, at the level of the steering committee of the Senate, the two unions, AUP and SWOF, their executives were also part of that process. And I happened to be able to vote for it as a member of the Senate, where with more than 90 people in presence, it was unanimously approved. So I think that that's an important example also of shared governance.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Blitz.
Go ahead, Regent James, online.
Thank you. I know we are running long, but I just want to take a moment to thank you for the leadership, for the relevant curriculum, for your focus, for your financial discipline, and for the successful planning and strategic actions that you have taken over the years for the successful long-term sustainability of Central. And I just commend you because I know all of these actions are a heavy lift and require a great deal, as you say, of coordination, collaboration. But again, it's leadership and setting that tone at the top. And very, very excited for the future of Central and want to thank you very much.
Thank you, Regent.
Say this very quickly. I'm really excited to hear Professor Blitz's comments about your process and the shared governance that you used in putting this together. And I also wanted to compliment you on the presentation last week with the ASA committee on your enrollment and retention strategies. It's very comprehensive. It's very concrete, and I, for one, it makes me hopeful that we can achieve the projections you're providing. So thank you.
Thank you, Regent. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Is it on? Yeah, in theory, so. All right, here we go. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I just want to commend President Toro. Everything she mentioned in the presentation, I happen to agree with. I'm currently a student at Central, so I do see all the programs and the opportunities that Central provides as a student, and I think it definitely, as a student, you get what you put into. So the opportunities are there. So yeah, I just want to commend you.
There you go, there you go. Get that in there.
I also want to shout out Northwestern Connecticut Community College because they also provided.
Dr. Rook will delete your record at Northwestern if you don't thank him. So you might be going back to square one. So look, thank you everyone again. Before I pass this to Chair Ryan to kind of gavel out, I want to thank everyone for being here. There's more work to be done. We're going to continue to learn to work together more efficiently and more effectively across the system. I have great trust in our presidents. I have great trust in our leadership teams. And most importantly, I have great trust in our faculty and staff. Right? You're the frontline people who work with our students each and every day to do the best for them. I really want to thank our regents for being engaged throughout this entire process, for asking great questions, for keeping us sharp and on our toes. And we're going to continue to do everything we can to meet the financial challenges that we find ourselves in, but we're going to continue to try to do that while keeping the pressure and the burden off of our students as much as possible. But the reality is there may only be so much more we can do before drastic cuts and alternative measures create long-term harm. So we're going to continue to work with our state leaders and do our best to demonstrate and prove that we are more than worthy of the state's full investment. And we'll just continue to do that work, and we hope to be there with you as we go along that process. So thank you, Chair Ryan.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chancellor Chang. We appreciate it. I just have one, it's almost an advertisement for our chamber, but it's very, very apropos for what we've been talking about, and that's numbers. And if we don't have numbers and tons of students coming into our area, moving into Connecticut or staying in the area, we're going to be at a major loss. So on Friday morning, you're all invited as our guests to be at the 5 Points Arts Center on University Drive to listen to one of the outstanding demographers of the country, Ken Gronbeck. He is our special guest speaker. He's an expert in demography and the future. The last time I heard him, boy, was he right on target, and that was 8 years ago. And he predicted all the things that have been happening, and he didn't even know about COVID then. So please, if you have any interest, let me know. I do have a flyer. I know, Ra, you're planning on attending, and I know Dr. Rook is coming. But you're all welcome as our guests, so let me know because I have flyers here. But with that, I'd like to say thank you for all that you've done and all that you have, everyone here. I would like to recognize our institution presidents and their leadership teams again for the tremendous amount of work that all of you have put into this to prepare your campuses since our June board meeting. You've met the challenges with tenacity, endurance, and great pride in your institutions and its students, and that's very evident today, and it makes me very proud to be with all of you. Thank you so very, very much. I will call for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
May I have a second? A second? Second. All in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Oh, thank you.